In an object-oriented programming mean that we are only dealing with the objects. It means that we are going to create a class. Inside we are going to put methods and variables which get encapsulated, and we need to create an instance of that particular class. Class becomes a template. Class becomes a template. Template means that you are making the coding ready, the whole architecture of a particular working process of each and every statements which is put up inside the methods, and variables have been defined. So everything you are going to put it inside. So it is called as a template. So you have we define it as a class. So the keyword which is being used is class. Okay. So in that particular class, when we define a particular class, we need to create an object. So when we create a specific object, it is actually an instance. The instance will have real world values. Means whatever changes you are going to do, it will affect only with respect to the object. It is not affecting the class. Class doesn't have any what do you say, values which is getting stored. But in objects, when you create an instance of an class, immediately an object will be created, a memory allocation will be done, and a variable values will be assigned. And whenever you change the variables, the method behavior also changes, because method will give you different values based on the variables. So like that, the whole class will be defined and objects will also be created. Next, coming down in object-oriented concept, there are inheritance, polymorphism, and encapsulation. So these are all the three different keywords we need to understand. One is inheritance. Inheritance means that from the one class, we can inherit the properties. Properties means that variables and methods can be taken from another class to the base class, from the derived class. So this is actually an inheriting the properties. Means if you have a method already defined, we are going to take that particular as an what do you say, reusable code. So that is called as inheritance. And we have another name which is called as polymorphism. Polymorphism means during the runtime, what is the way in which the methods will work, and methods will exactly do during the call of during the runtime call. So that is called as polymorphism. Now next is called encapsulation. What is encapsulation means? Encapsule is you are having methods, variables which is defined inside a class is called encapsulation. These three keywords will combine to make us object-oriented programming. We will see about how to define a Python class. So I will just demonstrate using a particular Python class. I will create a web module. So this is not there in your particular thing. So I will just create an web module of class person. Okay. Now I will just create these things are not there. I'm just using the IDE editor. So all these things will be defined by default. I'll tell you about the constructor. Before that, we will just keep on understanding how does the class will exactly work. So we are going to create a class keyword. Next, name of the class. Okay. Next, after that, we are going to specify the variables. Okay. So we will work with a simple I'm giving the class name as person. Now with this, for the particular person, we'll have name, which is actually defined. Sorry, this is not there. So name, I'm just giving an instantiation. Defined. Now with this particular variables, I will create a method inside the class. How do I create a method? So we are going to use def. Please understand, you should have a tab space clearly mentioned. A tab space to be there in the tab. If you are going to use a tab space, it means that it is there inside this particular scope of the class. Okay, so this is comes under scope of the class. This comes under scope of the class, and it is under the scope of the class. So this becomes scope, means it comes under block of code inside the class. Now I will just define a method which is called display. So in a display, when we are defining a method called display, so I'm giving a name called display. Inside that, the parameters which you are, arguments which has been defined is called self. Okay, arguments as self, but this is doesn't work as any kind of internal arguments. We are not gonna send any value to it. Okay, we will understand what is self. Self is a keyword which is used to define the present object which is accessing this particular class. Self is a keyword which is used to identify that the present object which is calling this particular class method. Okay, so this is called self. Now inside this particular definition, what else has been defined? So we will go for that. Inside the definition, we have to have a single space, which is again double tab. So you have one tab and another tab which comes under the scope of the display. Now I will just print. This is a print statement which I am specifying. So now I'm gonna display self dot name. I use self dot address. Self means what? It means that present object which is getting displayed. Working on that. Okay. So now what I will do is, with a display, we are not going to specify anything. Now you can see that I have come out of the scope of it. Now it is clearly mentioned that you have a class, name of the variables. Next is a definition. Inside that I have given a method name and a simple print statement which has been defined. Now I will give the name as RVC Mysuru Road. Okay, this is how I give the instantiation of initialization of the variables. Okay, initialization of the variables is done. Okay, I am using single comment line. Initialization of the variables is done and we are going to display it back. Now, how do I create an object of it? Now, the class which is defined with a method, now I will create an object. So, there are two things we need to remember. You have equal to sign. Equal to sign will tell towards your left hand side a variable name, towards your right hand side is your class name you are going to define. So this is how you create an object of a particular class. Now in this P mean it is a variable of the class which is defined is called person. Now person with brackets, when you put it, you are going to call this particular class, and you have to see that it should not come under the scope of the class. It should not come under the scope of the class. Now the scope of the class means you have one tab. This comes under the complete scope of the class. This doesn't come scope of the class. It is under the same scope of the class. Same scope of the class. So it is outside the scope of the class. Now we have to call a particular method. So I use a dot operator. So what is the purpose of using dot operator is the operator will actually access the member functions, members of the class. The operator, the dot operator will access the members of the class. Now we will understand this is very simple. We are having a P as an object, P as an object, and P dot, we are using dot operator to access the member. So what is the member we are having? Display is the member, P dot name is the member, address is the member, email is the member. So all these things are the members which is actually present. Now how do I access the members? P dot, I can use name also to access, right? So print, if I do P dot name, I am able to access the members of it. Okay, so we will run this particular thing and let us know how does this exactly gives me the answer. Now you can see that we have called the member, so member of the particular class, and also we have executed the display method. Okay, display method. So here it is taking self. Here we are not sending anything as a parameter. Okay, so this is how the total process of a particular class and method will be done. So we will come down. So we have also defined the variables, and also we know how to access the particular thing. How the objects can be created with that, and how is this particular object will be reference to that. Okay, now these things we have understood. Now I want to assign a value from outside. So here I have taken a reference of an object. Here it is already defined, but I want to change it. So can I change that? So P dot name, I need to give an at the right hand side we have to define the variable or the value to be changed, and next at the left hand side you need to specify the value. So this is what the value I have changed. Okay, now if I access it, now what will happen? The latest one, so it is an default value which has been defined. So here if I am changing it, the same value in the particular object called P, the value will be changed. Okay, so we will see how does it exactly work. Now you can see that the whole object, so the name has been completely replaced with Kriya Kalpa. Now the address and also it has email is also changed. Now you can understand that here I have changed the value, but when I do p.display, how is that p.display is also changing the name? It is because we are having self. This we can understand. Self means it is the present object which is being accessed. Okay, please understand. Now P means it is an object instance from the class, and from the P I am changing the name of it. Now when I print it back, you can have P dot name. So you can see that P dot name in the particular object called P, the value has got changed. Now it will not come, RVC will not come. Okay. Why? Because for the present object which is getting accessed, the present object dot name is getting changed as Kriya Kalpa. So this is how the process is running. This is the present object. Okay. Now, sir, if I create another object, will that also get affected? That we will see. Now I'm creating another class with respect to the object called P1. Now P1 dot display. I'll call this. Okay. We'll run this. You can see that it is clearly telling that the object which is having created, this one is only getting changed. Will this the second object is getting changed? No. Why? Because it is not initialized with any of the values. That's the only reason that the objects are different. The scope of the objects are different, and scope will definitely changes. Okay, this is how we have understood how to create an object, how to assign a value to a members, how do I call the members of a particular method, and also we have seen the difference of the particular object with P and P1. So both we have understood how does the objects also behaves. Now this why self has come also we have understood. What do you mean by self also? Okay. You have any specific doubts, you can ask me. So now, is there any other way that we can have the class attributes can be defined or printed back? Okay. Now I need to print the particular variables. Now p dot. So I will use a format. So in this particular format, I will tell name, and next I will tell p dot name. Next, after that, I will tell address to be shown. We'll use the bracket. So what is this type of the bracket is called? P dot address. So in this also we can display the details. This is how we can have different ways to display the details. We are using F keyword, which is called format. Okay. We are using format. Next. So we are using dot operator to access the attributes of a particular class. Now, how do we create an objects? So we have known that how to create an specific object, how do we assign, how do we create a particular method, how a particular method can also be called using the dot operator. We are invoking a particular method using the dot operator. Dot notation is used to invoke the method. So this is how we have accessed it. Now we will understand what is a constructor. Now, what is a constructor mean? Constructor is basically used for telling what type of variables which I can initialize during the creation of the object. So that is called as a constructor. In Python, the constructor is clearly defined as double underscore init double underscore. So it is called as double underscore methods or enter methods. Okay, this is also called as magic methods. Okay, now this is called as a constructor. Okay, this is called as a constructor. This method will always be by default, it is initialized. Okay, so now what is happening here is whenever I create this particular thing, I have not defined this dunter method, right? Also in this particular init method. So in that particular case, now this is dynamically getting created and it is assigning a nothing in here. It is looking like this, whatever it is defined. Now the particular phase of the constructor is init is one of the reserved function in Python. In object oriented programming, it is known as constructor. It starts when the definition keyword, like all other functions in Python, it is followed by the word init, which is prefixed and suffixed with the double underscore with a pair of brackets. Okay, and it takes an argument called self, assigning values to the variables. I have already shown you how does the self will work, right? Self will work. Now, in this particular init method, which is called a constructor, we are having, so we will understand is that the constructor will work first or not. So we will just work with this. So print of inside init method, and I'll just tell pause for time being. Now we will understand is that the constructor will run first or display will run first. So whenever I am creating the particular object, now what I will do, I will just simply do a comment of that, and I will just run this only one line which is creating of the particular object. We need to know, no, the constructor is working. So now you can see that constructor is working. So this is the init method will run first. Init method will run first and later on during the creation of the object will be done. Okay. So this is what called as the constructor. What is the next purpose is for doing constructor process is using the constructor process is we are going to initialize the variables whichever is has been given out. So now what I will do is for this self dot name, so I will gonna initialize, right? Now self dot address self dot email is equal to email. Now I will give an explanation on self. Why did I specify self dot name? I specified the self. Why? Because it is of the object. I told the present object which is accessing. I'm going to initialize the present object name, means this is the name which is of the same object. I'm going to initialize with the argument or the parameter which has been sent to this particular name. Okay. The value to it, it should be assigned to the present object dot name. So this is how the initialization process during the object creation will be done. Okay. So the name whichever I am going to send, and next whatever we are going to have as an address which is actually specified. Next we have email which has been given. So we are going to send it as a parameter from outside, from an outside. Then what will happen? This is an outside method. So the outside process. So we are going to send the values to it. And when we are sending the values to it, immediately what will happen is this, the object, whatever it has and the default values, it will get changed. Okay. So now we have a constructor. So if I run this particular program, will it runs or not? Let me see that. No. Now, because in the constructor, what did we do?
ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ
ಏನಾಗಲ್ಲ ಸುಹಾಸ್ can you mute? Suhas, can you mute? Suhas?
Yes, sir, muted.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, in this particular init method, if you want me to go faster, I will go faster if it is getting bored. So why I'm telling this is, it is because the init method, see how does the Python works? It is very much important because it works, a lot of internal things are there, which is working continuously. So you have an init method, which is works as a constructor. So you have init method, you have self, name, address, and email, which has been sent from the outside. Now, what is the error I'm going to get? What is the error is, it is telling me that during the creation of the object, you have a positional arguments, which is called as name, address, and email, which you have to specify compulsorily. Okay, for during the object creation. Now, whatever the default constructor was there, default constructor without having any kind of parameters, it is not working. Now, it is compulsory that you need to give the name, address, and email, right? So now what I will do is I'll give the name. Okay, this is the name. Next is the address. Again, I will give the address. Next, I have to give it with the comma separated. It is compulsory that you have to give comma separated, and it means that this goes to name and this part will goes to the address. The next comma separated, whatever has been given, this, the third particular parameter, it goes to an argument called email. Okay, so we are having values. It is going to the argument name. Here second value is going to the address, and third value will going to the third, what do you say, argument. So this is how it is actually working. Now I will run this and I will just uncomment p dot display for time being, because we need to understand is that the assigning of the values have been done or not. Okay, now you can see that the default values, whatever has been specified, name, address and email, which has been specified, it has not during the instantiation, it has not taken. First the values has been taken up, and afterwards now you can see that it has got changed with the particular self, means the present object values whatever was present. Now this is the one way where I can send the parameters and I can have the object. So this is the purpose of using the constructor. This is the purpose of using the constructor. Constructor is used to initialize the values during runtime, and this is the first method to get executed during the creation of the object. So this is the proof. Okay, now this is about the constructor which is being used. Okay, we'll go further. How can I specify the particular variables? If suppose I want to specify the arguments, proper arguments to be sent, like what kind of arguments which has been specified to that particular variables. Can I do something like this or not? Now, what is that I have told is it is the variable name and the value, right? Let me see if it runs. Now, is it working fine? Yes. I can even specify. So you can see this what it is. So now the constructor is being run. I can have the other way around to run the particular argument values. Now here if suppose I am having, I just forgot that what is the way in which the variables have been defined or the arguments have been defined. So I can directly address it using the variable name. So in here there is a catch that the variable name should be same in. Okay. Now I will run this again and I have to get the same format. You can see that same format. Right? Is there any change? There is no change in that. Right? I hope so you are able to understand. Now what is the address I have given? Address, it is going here. Name I have given. Name is going here. Email has been given. Email will go here. So that is how the combination of the argument names can be sent to the particular constructor. I hope so you are able to get it. So you have anything, any questions in this, you can just ask me. Okay. So we will go further. Okay, so it is also telling that how does the constructor in the class is automatically created. So that is how I have given the demonstration. How does the constructor will be instantiated first, and also the constructor when it is being run, how does the constructor will instantiate and how does it calls a particular method. Okay, this is actually an equivalent to writing. So here the constructor is not defined, but here the constructor has been defined with no arguments. So this is also the same thing. There is no much difference in this. It is only having init method without any parameters, and you have pause, which is keyword which is being used, right? So this is how the total how does the default constructor will exactly work. Next, coming down, how does the parameterized constructor will work? So I have told you how does the parameterized constructor is there. So you have a class name and name. you have members, and also you are going to define a particular method in it, and if self is compulsory, you should keep it. Don't delete that self and you cannot run it, because that becomes your present object. So that comes under the syntax of it. And here you have count. So this becomes your first argument which you are going to take it to this particular method, and you are sending one parameter to it. You are not sending self. Self will be automatically initialized from the object name which has been given. Okay, this is how it has to work, and this is your default method, and this is your user defined method which you are going to define it. Next, we will understand there are two types of the method in Python. There are two types of method in Python that is called, one is called class method, the another one is called static method. After this, this will be the last part which I am going to explain, and tomorrow we will have the same session during 6 to 7. Okay, so there are two types of methods in Python. One is called class method, another one is called your static method. So now we will understand what is a class method. Class method is a decorator. So how do you define that? Class method. So this is a decorator which we are going to define, right? This we will understand. Class method mean this method is not related to any of the objects. So this is called as a class method. I can call this particular method directly. Okay. So I will call this particular method directly with respect to the class method. Now, how do I call directly? I have the person dot display. Now here I have not created any kind of object instance. So I have not created any kind of object instance, and I am calling the display method directly. Okay, there is the other way which we are used to do it, is that we need to create the particular object. Next, afterwards we used to call this particular method, correct? This is how it used to be done. But when I define it as a class method, it means that this method can be called without instantiation also. So that is called your class method. Okay, now I will just run this and I'll show you how does it works. Now you can see that this method, without instantiation, without creating any kind of object, I am able to call this particular method. Next is a static method. Okay, a static method is bound to a class rather than the objects for this class. Okay, so now, so you are having your class method which has been defined. Now you are having an object. Now you are having an object with a particular method. So this we can access the class method with the help of class instance of the object, or object also, or the object also we can use it. So it can be have in both the ways it can work. Okay. Now in this particular static method, it is class rather than the object for this class. This means that static method can be called without an object for that class. This also means that static methods cannot modify the state of the object as they are not bound to it. This we will understand. I will specify any type of calculation which is with respect to the salary. I'll give self, I'll give DA, HRA, and I'll give basic calculation. and here I will give this dot salary. Sorry, self dot salary, self dot salary is equal to, I'm gonna specify DA plus HRA plus basic. I'm not doing any basic. I'm not doing the complete calculation. Just I'm doing with respect to that, and I'm just telling with respect to at static method which I'm going to define it. Okay, this is called a static method. This is about the class method which I have defined it. Now I want to call the salary, but I'm defining with respect to the variables which has already given out. Now what I will do is I will call person dot salary. So here I'm gonna specify DA as 330. Next I will give HRA with is 15,000. Basic is again 15,000. So now person dot salary will be defined. It's not self is not defined. Okay. So here we are dealing with external process which is given. We are not instantiating any kind of thing, right? So here you have self. I'm sorry, because I have defined a particular method, it is taking me the self. Yeah. Okay. I don't need any kind of self to be defined in here. Okay, so this becomes your static. So it is telling me that I need to define a particular variable. So what I will do is salary is equal to 0. So I'm defining in the class variable is the salary because it comes out of the scope of it. Okay, and static method is not related to any object. It is not related to any object. That's why I have removed the static thing, right? I need to give print. I hope so you are able to understand what is the difference between the static and a class variable. Okay, salary. Okay, given the same name as the method name, so it is giving it, but it is working fine. So it is giving me method variable. So it's not calculating, so it becomes here. I will just print because it is not gonna take up all those particular values because I'm not using self, right? We'll understand that. Okay, here I'm calling the particular method. It is doing the particular process and I got my value directly defined. Now without instantiation, I'm able to get it. So I'm calling the class name dot salary. Okay, and also so we are having your class name with the salary. Now you will be having questions in that telling that, sir, what does the difference it makes with a class method and a static method? The class method is related to the class, but it is also working with the objects. But it is working with the objects. The static method means that it is not at all related to any of the objects. That's why we are not specified this self also. Okay, we have not specified self. Self, if I put it becomes a non-static. It means that it is related to this particular class. That's the difference between static method and a class method. That's the only difference it makes. Okay. So here also I'm calling with respect to the person display, but it can also be called with respect to object also. But when it comes to a static method, you are supposed to call this particular method, but what will happen? It is not related to any of the objects. So it becomes very much static that it can be called from anywhere, from any of the particular packages also. It doesn't make any difference. Okay. So that is what is called a static method and a class method. When we need some functionality, not with respect to an object, but with respect to the complete class, we make a method static. This is pretty much advantageous when we need to create utility methods, as they aren't tied to an object lifecycle usually. So this is what is called as a static method. It comes under the decorator called at static method decorator. If you put at symbol, it is called as decorators. Okay, it is called as decorators. Now, I have already explained this, what is called as an encapsulation. I'll just do a refresh. Encapsulation in Python describes the concept of bundling data and methods within a single unit. Is called as an encapsulation. Bundling means what? You are having variable data members and you are having methods which is actually defined. You are wrapping the data and methods that work on data within one unit is called as a class, and this is called as an encapsulation. Implement encapsulation using the class. Encapsulation example is this: you are having init method, show, work. So all these particular methods which is actually combined together from here to here, it is called as an encapsulation. You have a constructor, you have a method which is actually defined. So all these particular things will comes under, it's called as an encapsulation. We'll talk about access modifiers tomorrow. By same time, I will just log into it is at exactly by 6 o'clock. We'll do an encapsulation, access modifiers, and I'll be completing with respect to polymorphism and also what is inheritance. So all these things we are going to cover it by tomorrow. You have any specific questions till now? You can ask, or I'll stop the session.